Hello and welcome to this video where I will explain how to use our new macro. You can find it under the macro section in our shelf. Right click on the icon, scroll down and you can see multi-cloth buttons. Alternatively, you can find it in our Carbon menu. Go to Carbon menu item, scroll down to macros and here you can see it, multi-cloth buttons. This macro is very similar to our existing buttons macro. In the buttons macro, you selected a cloth and then you selected a group that holds multiple geometries. And for each geometry, for each mesh in this group, it would create a rigid, a shape, and a body, and then weld it automatically to the cloth. Now, similar to that, our multi-cloth buttons, as the name implies, it does not take a single cloth input, but instead you select a carbon simulation and then you select the group of the meshes and it will find the closest cloth to each button, and that's where it's gonna weld the button to. So let's just get started and it hopefully will all be clear. We have a basic simulation here where I have 4 cloths all colored in different colors, so you can distinguish them easier. Also between cloths, so where 2 cloths meet, we created a stitching of the points. We create a very zero-length stitching, so we also added narrow filters to remove the collision, which would otherwise cause fighting between the tight stitching and the collision. All right, if you just run the simulation, you can see the cloth just drapes over our sphere collider. Now let's have a look at the buttons. I already imported a whole set of buttons and here we can find 78 buttons from 0 to 77. Now, old style, I'd have to basically figure manually out which buttons I want to weld to which cloth. But if you have multiple cloths, this can obviously get a bit tedious. So pretty easy now. What we do with the new macro, we select a carbon simulation node. So that's a simulation with all the cloths we want to consider being welded to. And then we hold control, we select this group node holding all the rigid body meshes. Now all we need to do is run the macro. Again, this can be either from the macro section of the shelf or from the menu. So you go to macros and click on multi-cloth buttons. This asks us now how many welds we want per button. So how many cloth points each button is supposed to be attached to. I usually like to get 4 to get a pretty stable welding. Let's click OK. And this goes ahead and does its thing. And now we end up with the setup. Right, visually you can already see we have all of these buttons that were turned into carbon rigid bodies, so rigid shape and body. And we can also see all these yellow lines here, so each button being attached. Let's just run the simulation. And we get exactly what we want. Each button is nicely attached to the closest cloth. So what did it create? Our macro here. We created all of these buttons and the weldings. So we have a rigid body macro, basically creating a rigid, a shape, and a body, and then we have a welding for this one. So welding containing the rigid and the closest cloth by proximity. Additionally, it created the carbon body output meshes. So this one contains the output mesh for each of the buttons in case you want to do something like render it. And yeah, I hope this makes sense, and I hope you have fun using this macro node as much as I am. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.